I want to talk more about the empirical. On your formula sheet, in order to use the empirical rule, what kind of data do you have to have? Bell-shaped data. Okay, the center of this is your mean. All right, from there, what do these two lines represent? The first standard deviation. And what percent of your data should fall within one standard deviation? All right. The next line. So from here to here represents 2 standard deviations. And on our formula sheet it tells us within 2 standard deviations we should have 95% of the data. All right, these last lines are all the way out here. It's kind of hard to see them. And you'll notice they're very, very close to the end, because that third standard deviation includes what percentage? So now let's talk about this. So the mean is the center. If 68% fall from here to here, then what percentage is on each side? 34. 34. So this is 34% of the data right here. And this would be 34. Now, within this next group, we have 95% of the data. So, we already know that 68% is between these red lines. So we need to figure out how much is left between these. So do 95 minus 68, 27. But then it's split up over the 2. Do a quick check, guys. If you add all 4 of these numbers, do you get 95? Yes. So that's how the breakdown of that 95% of my data falls. All right, let's figure out the next section. So from here to here, we know we have 99.7%. 95 is already in the middle. So if you do your 99.7 minus your 95, you get, and then you need to divide that by 2 for your 2 ends. So these are 2.35%. And you notice it kind of corresponds. Like the biggest sections of my graphs had the highest percentages. As I go down, these sections are getting smaller and my percentages are getting smaller. Let's talk about the tails of the graph. So these 2 ends right here. There's something there. How much is left? 0.3. 0.3. We have 99.7 in the middle. So that leaves 0.3 for these. So if you do 0.3 divided by 2, 0.5. So this is 0.15. 0.15% on each of those little tails. Okay. Are there any questions on how I filled this in? If you took this middle line, how much of your data lies above the mean? 50%. You add up all these, you get 50. If I said how much data is between 1 standard deviation below and 2 standard deviations above. So 1 standard deviation below starts here. 2 standard deviations above goes here. So what would you do? Add those 3 percentages. 34 plus 34 plus 13.5. 81.5% falls there. Okay, I gave you another blank one at the bottom. We're going to do an example, and we're going to use that graph to help us. So here is our example. If you want to jot this down on the back of your paper or something, you're welcome to. So suppose I gave a test with an average score of 84, so that's my mean, and a standard deviation of 5. All right, either I have to tell you this is bell-shaped data, which I didn't, but I said based on the empirical rule. So that tells me we are able to use that empirical rule. Before I answer any questions, I want to label a few things on my picture. The mean is the center. So we can go to our empty bell curve that I gave you. And your center, or your mean, I'm going to label that as 84. So this is 84. My standard deviation is 5. So to get these numbers below it, what would I do? Yeah, we're going to add and subtract 5. So to get the one smaller, so 84 minus 5, 79 minus 5, 74 minus 5. And then to get these, we add 5. So 84 plus 5. 89 plus 5.
99.
Everybody knows how we got those? So when I say what percent of the scores were between 74 and 94. So 74, that's 2 standard deviations below. 94 is 2 standard deviations above. So this is just 2 standard deviations. That's just straight from our empirical rule. What percent has to be within 2 standard deviations? Is this helping having the visual? Hopefully. B. I want to know what percent is lower than 79. So the empirical rule as it's written just tells me, between 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviations, and 3 standard deviations. So we have to think a little more here. Below 79. I think some of you. Lower lower than 70. So if I look at my picture, 79 is here. I want to know how much falls below that. So you can add up all the percentages, or we could think we know this bottom half is 50%, right? How much was right here? 34. So you could just do 50 minus 34, and you get 16. That's the same thing you would get if you added up those three percentages that we labeled in the graph above that. What percent are between 69 and 94? So here's 69, 94. So I want everything except these ends. So probably the easiest option, you can either add all the percentages in the middle and subtract that from 100, or you could just add up these percentages on the end. What was this percentage? 0.15. And this was, and this was, so if you add all those up,
97.
that adds up to 2.65. We want to know what percent were between them. So, yeah, you could do 100% minus that. Like I said, it's the same thing as if you just added all of those up, so different ways of thinking about it. You get 97.35%. What percent of the scores were above 99? So we already labeled that. Above 99 is just the 0.15. Questions there? All right, so here's what I want to do.